Today, we will be learning our ABCs. That is, we're going to pick a player for each letter of the alphabet. And I actually haven't fully decided what my criteria are, so we'll decide along the way. I tend to be kind of tournament result focused, but we may want to go with kind of community engagement or other things too. I think I'm going to be mostly tournament focused, but there are choices here. That to say, we'll start with the letter A, and I think this one is a pretty clear Akiyama. We also have Asela. We have Anthony. There are a bunch of players that started with A. Akiyama and Asela are the two tournament winners, and I think it's got to be Akiyama. And I don't think there's anyone kind of up there in the range of my top 50 that starts with an A other than these. So we got Akiyama. I guess Ace. Ace should be in the conversation, but I think it's got to be Akiyama. For B, there is, of course, the option that we go with a community focus and pick someone like Balls. Uh, when I say someone like Balls, obviously there aren't many people like Balls for our community. But could go someone like Balls. Could also go someone like Bryce, one of the first editors of Occult Fan, and I think a really big part of the community for a while. But yeah, I'm going to stay tournament focused. I think Beast Day, the only person to beat Doc Evil, has a shout here. Bren and his just really high peak around when he won Triad Wars 3. But I think it's got to be two-time site champion Broccoli. We should also think, what's the best letter, right? So we got, Akiyama, maybe we have Acela and Ace. Broccoli, we have Bren, Beast Day. Let's put Bryce in there. Bryce also has quite a good tournament record. What's the best letter? So far, I'll probably go B. I think B wins out there, but it's pretty close. C, we have Cookie versus Chickeny. I'm torn here. There's also Selder more recently, but obviously it's Cookie versus Chickeny. Let's go Cookie. I think Chickeny is the better player. I think it's not particularly close, but I think it's hard to go against Cookie's 3 tournament wins. Now, D is a huge one. There's obviously Dalamar. There's Dream Virus, one of the really good non-winners. And then we have Demonic, who won what I still think is one of the most incredible tournaments won. Most of my tournament kind of ranking things don't list it because I'm focused on single-player tournaments. But check out Essie Rhinoa 5. Look at the field that he and Slash went through. Incredible work. We have D, Bane of Yojimbo, and winner of Triad Wars 9. We have Doc Evil, and of course we have our winner, Delial. But there's a case for Doc Evil here, right? And this is clearly our best letter so far. That's a pretty strong letter here. There's also Doom Train, who is in my top 100 pretty firmly and is was a very good player. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch there. And now we reach E. And I really struggled with E. I looked through my tournament records. I set it to every person's name who's ever played a tournament match. Take the first letter of their name, and if it's E, ping me so I can go find it. So I found everyone that had played with their main name in tournaments being under the letter E. And the best player I found was Ebby. I have no idea who Ebby is. This is way before my time. The best player I found was Ebby, who played, a couple tournaments and won a couple tournament games. Not, at least by that measure, remotely notable. So I thought about it a bit more, and I came up with 2 names I think we can compare here. One is Ein. Now, when CC Ace came back for one tournament, one kind of final, hey, I want to see how I hold up. Am I the player I think I am? And he played Vincent, and he beat some very good players. He beat Nightwish. I think he beat someone else really good. I don't remember off the top of my head. He ends up losing to eventual winner Turds in the semifinals, and that was a kind of satisfying way for him to go out, right? I haven't played many of these tournaments. It's been a long time since I've played, but I think I'm still dominant. I think I can still compete, and he definitely could. And in that tournament, he went by Ein. So the case for him counting there is that's actually his best tournament run, right? Is under the name Ein, under the pseudonym Ein, EIN. But I think the case against is just like no one knows him as Ein. Everyone knows him as CC Ace. This this is not a name we connect to this player, right? If you saw this list and you saw Ein, you probably wouldn't know who was being referred to. Oh, we could put Broccoli here. I didn't think of that. She was going by Emerald by the end. Oh, it's probably Broccoli. Huh. Probably Broccoli. Okay. The other name I was going to get to, and I think there's a better case for this than for Ein, is Edgy, right? Steve 3 went by Edgy for a long time. That was his main name. And he was well known as that. If you talked about that to like anyone who was around then today, they'd know exactly who you meant. And he was much beloved in the community. And I think that's the better choice than Ein, because I think Edgy was a name really used at length. Edge or Edgy. And Steve 3 ended up being a really strong tournament player. He didn't have deep runs during his period of really high level of play because he kept going 2-1 against just horrible tournament draws. Like he'd just draw three really strong players and he'd go 2-1. And so the rating he ended up with by my ELO ratings was like 2150, which is just very, very strong. And he was clearly a very strong player. And just about anyone else who has hit a peak as high as it has him hitting has like a semifinals or a finals to their name. And I don't even know if in his era getting there he has a quarterfinals, right? I haven't checked recently, but like he was playing at this very high level. It was very impressive. But he was doing that under the name Steve 3. Under the name Edgy, he did not have much success. And that means I think we should go Emerald here. And I think Edgy, Ein are kind of backup picks, which means we can't have Broccoli be it in two places. So I think B is now going to be Bren. There's a case for B stay there. There's a case for B stay, but I think we're going to go Bren and give Emerald E. Oh, that feels good to me, right? I was very happy with Broccoli at B, but she went by Emerald for a long time. I just think of her as Broccoli and list her as Broccoli because that's the name she used when I first met her. It was not the name she used when starting out. It was not the name she used at the end. I think she probably used the name Emerald longer than she used the name Broccoli, and it is her more recent name, so I probably should just call her that because I should generally defer to the most recent name someone has used. It can just be difficult not to refer to someone by the name you primarily knew them as. So E equals Emerald, and yeah, I think that helps the list a bunch because E was a real problem letter. We're going to have other problem letters, but we'll get to those shortly. For F, we have Firebrand. I don't think there's much choice here. Faison is a player. Falcon X is in somewhere near my top 100. Maybe not in my top 100, but somewhere around 100th. But gotta be Firebrand. G, we have Grat, but Grat was quickly surpassed by Great Sephiroth. Sorry, Grat. Grat's great. Incidentally, Great Sephiroth is one of, the all-time great lamers of abusing noobs on level 4. But his win percentage on his account is nothing like Grat's. Grat's account has like 21,000 wins and like 200 losses. The most insane account on the site. All right, then we get H. Not much competition here. There's basically Hellboy is a pretty solid tournament player, but I think there was only ever going to be Homer there. Then we reach I, and I was a problem letter. Much like E, I had to do a search of every name I got starting with an I, and I had like Isdar and Ice Pick, and there were some others, just names, and Iron Guardian. Iron Guardian was the only name that meant anything to me that I remembered. I feel like Ice Pick might be a pseudonym for someone, but I'm not sure who it was, so I just have them as Ice Pick. Yeah, Iron Guardian was around for a bit in the later days, but no names that like stood out compared to the other names we have here for like tournament results. But I was looking at my aliases list, And I somehow didn't get to Emerald from that list, and I really should have. But Ictorn. Ictorn was the name MC went by. Now, almost all of his success was under MC, but there's no one else for I. So I think we got to go Ictorn. And I think this is the best we can get here. There was some success under the name Ictorn, but again, made this huge jump under the name MC. And actually, the jump was a bit after changing to the name MC, so because the jump was really like late 2009 and the change came earlier. So, not a ton of success under Ictorn, but still way more than anyone else. And of course, MC is just incredibly deserving of being on a list like this. Kind of weird to have him under Ictorn, but I think better to include him here, given that I is a wasteland, right? If we had some, very good but not elite player under I would happily include them here and leave MC for later. But I think this is a much more extreme example than we had with the E's, right? Both Edgy and Ein are very good. Here, there's very little to choose from. So if you're looking to be, in some kind of Hall of Fame records, change your name to something starting with, well, we'll get to the letter you should change your name to. J, here we have a choice. There's two players that came up. Genova's very good. No icons. Genova might be the best tournament player to never get an icon. And so I think for a lot of people, I think she did a phenomenal job running FFF. I think that's what she's rightly most known for. But her tournament record is actually she's an above 50% player against solid opposition with some quite big wins and just happened to never reach an icon, but has a resume that, like, her expectation given her results is one or two quarterfinals. Yeah. But that's not the choice. The choice is Jaws or Jadat. My rankings tend to have Jaws higher, but I'm going to go Jadat today. I think Jadat at his best is a little better than Jaws at his best. And I like Jadat, so we're going to go K. Now, K, we've reached our second great letter. I think our first great letter was clearly D. D is an incredible letter. K is also an absurdly good letter. Because, not even in our top 4, we have Kazik and Kefka. For a while, I thought Kefka was the best player to never win a tournament. I think Piggyman and Chickeny since have passed Kefka. And I also think, it's, Grat, a bunch of ones we won't name, Kazik, are in the conversation with Kefka. And at different times, I've ranked them differently. But Kefka is the first kind of early great non-winner, making finals, making deep runs in early tournaments. And Kazik is the kind of middle era, the 2006 to 2008 great non-winner. I think he's the second player after Ulti to make 2 finals without winning one. And given that Ulti disappeared from the site, was the very active person for a long time who most famously had come really close and clearly could be a winner but wasn't one. And those aren't even in our top 4 because we also have Karmazin, who's along with Doc Evil, one of the great short time players. I can spell, I swear. And we have Kaus Debonair, who, if we were including community connection, would possibly be number 1. But even then, we have Koner, and I think I'm going to give it to Kamikaze. But you could pick any of these 4 names, and it would look very reasonable to me. And if we change the criteria, it would be easy to pick Kaus. Though Kamikaze also one of the really important clan leaders in our history, and one of the important kind of running events type people. But of course, Kaus is possibly one of 3 names ahead of Kamikaze on those lists are probably Kaus. I think overall here it's got to be Kamikaze, but what an extraordinary letter. D versus K. DK, who you got in this Donkey Kong competition? If you want very top-end tournament talent, you go D. Almost any other criteria, I think you go K. But I quite like top end tournament talent, so I'm kind of tempted to say D. But I think K is probably the best letter we've seen so far. All right, L. This one I was panicked on for a while. I couldn't find almost anyone, but then I hit Lionheart, and so we're good. Incidentally, maybe I know not that much single player tournament success, but Black Bolt's one of those super respected historic players along with Lionheart, and I think Lionheart was the stronger player of that pair, according to most people I've talked to. M. Now here's the problem: we already used MC. On the other hand, M is quite a strong letter anyway, so we can get away without MC. We have Metis here, but Metis will not be our pick. We have Mafi Josie, another of those great early non-tournament winners, though sustained it much longer than Kefka did. But I think our pick with MC gone, and MC would be our pick here, is Meta. I think that's got to be the pick. Really strong run, 2006-7. For N, there are two directions you could go here. If you are really committed to the old legends of the game, you would go, of course, it's Nimloth, but I think we have to go Nightwish. I think we definitely have to go Nightwish. O is one of the weaker letters, and names tend not to start with the letter O, so this makes sense to me. I'm between Omega Weapon and Ore. Omega Weapon is an early solid player, a bunch of quarterfinals early, steadily winning more games than they lost. Didn't play for that long. Not in an era I think was particularly strong, but an early, very solid player. Ore, I think, less decorated, less icons, lower win rate, but tougher opposition and has a win, has some really big wins in a way Omega Weapon doesn't. I think Ore might have wins against both Yojimbo and Great Sephiroth. That sounds wrong as I'm saying it, but I think it might be true, which Omega Weapon certainly does not. I'm going to go Ore, mostly because I thought his side name, Moo, was pretty funny. But let's go Ore. If we were respecting the past today, we'd go Omega Weapon. Obviously, not one of our best letters. For P, so I thought this one was funny. I immediately went, obviously it's Piggy Man. And I sent a list into a chat which Piggy Man was in that had the list, and he said, thank you for calling me Piggy Man instead of the Piggy Man, because I wouldn't have been able to compete with the people on the letter T. And I thought, oh, okay, so if we can't do Piggy Man, we'll do Patriot. But he went by the Patriot, so I can't do that one either. So I think if we couldn't do Piggy Man here, and I'm definitely going to do Piggy Man here, I think we'd have to do Polo. I think Polo becomes the clear best player starting with the letter P. And Polo's a good player, so that wouldn't be the end of the world, but much happier with Piggy Man. So Q. I searched my database. I searched my aliases. I came up with the name Quamal, Quapia, or Qpia, Qmal, not sure. Not sure how these were intended to be pronounced. I think I came up with a couple other names that I'm forgetting now. But I think there were like a grand total of 3 or 4 names that have started with a Q, and none of them have ever won a tournament match. So we got nothing. So if you're looking to be in the record books, change your name to like question mark. Not the question, though maybe the question, because we saw with the Piggy Man, I'm willing to cut that. But something starting with a Q would be a good way to be. You could be the best player to ever have your name start with that letter. There's just, if you've won a tournament game, you are already there. All you have to do is play under this name for long enough that you get known by it, and enter a tournament under it, and you're good. You're the best Q of all time. On the other hand, Q has some pretty bad connotations these days, so maybe not. All right, R. Surprisingly, R was not a particularly strong letter. I think there's some letters you sort of expect there to be a lot of names with. Like, in real life, like J has a lot of names, like John, Joe, James, There's a whole bunch there, and for female names too. But R is one of those letters that's just very common, and you'd expect there to be a lot. And compared to that, not that much. I think our second place and the only tournament winner starting with an R is Raceland Magier, but I think this is a clear Ray Emanator. And this isn't like it's a weak winner for a letter or anything, though actually, you know what? Let's trash Ray for a while. But after we're done trashing Ray, we should say, I just would have expected more names to show up, right? That the letter R shows up here and like letters like barely shows up here, and letters like B, D, and K show up with lots of names is surprising to me. Uh, would have thought it would have more, for instance, than M. All right. Next up, we have S. Now, S is a pretty incredible letter. We got a whole bunch of tournament winners. We got some one-timers. We got Sujiro. We got Scythe. We got Suikoden. Note that the main other name Scythe used is Serenity, also starts with an S, but he also went by Vanity, but V has other players, so we will not be able to sneak Scythe in under any of his names. But if you are a name changer, again, think about a Q name. I think a Q name could be fitting for you. We also have some. Smokes is also a one-time tournament winner. And then we've got a three-time tournament winner in Slash of Time. But it's obviously Seto, right? But this is one of the great letters, and I think this can compete with K. I think S and K, followed by D, but you could have D up there. D's really good too. D, K, S. These are the three great letters. I'm curious when this video comes out, which letter do you think is best? Is it D? Is it K? Is it S? What else is in the conversation? If M had MC as well, nah, but it's still, these others are so strong. M is like pretty clearly the fourth best letter if you include MC, but though B is pretty good too. B and M are fourth and fifth, but it's D, K, and S are the top three letters. And that will be true. Now, T would be stronger if it had the Piggy Man and the Patriot, but the top end is still going to be the same. Though, actually, Piggy's right up there with these guys. But it's going to be Turds over Tezuka, which is, I think, a really fun rivalry, so it's fun to see them here. They've played a few times in tournaments. It has gone, in major tournaments as well as smaller ones, it's gone back and forth. And also, they started at basically the same time in 2005. And Tezuka is immediately very good. He's semifinals, his first or second tournament. Turds takes longer to get good. So through or maybe they start in 06. Yeah, I think they start in 06. In 06, 07, you can go back and look at Occult fans. Tezuka is this really promising new player, a key part of Avalanche's team. Turds is a name that will get mentioned, but is not important in the same way. And then Turds has a nice tournament. I think he wins the TTN tournament, and then he wins Vincent, and suddenly it's Turds who has the lead, and it's Turds who's performing better. And they both actually make the semifinals of SE Selfie. That's a tournament where, they could have been on track to finally to meet and kind of decide it all, but they both end up losing the semifinals. And then I think that was Selfie. That can't be right. What am I blanking on? I thought it was semifinals of Selfie. Turds makes the semifinals, loses to Nightwish. Oh, Tezuka's not in this one. Okay. Turds makes the semifinals of Selfie. Tezuka makes the semifinals. Oh, Triad Wars 7. Right. I knew they each made the semifinals of a tournament I won in my early run, but they were different tournaments. Okay. We solved it. So they were really comparable for a while. When Turds wins Vincent, he probably pulls into the lead, and I think his results after that tend to maintain that lead. Tezuka goes a bit less active. But Tezuka comes back and starts racking up results, and he obviously won the recent TTAC, but Turds won recently Carver and SE Cosmos. And so Turds clearly has the lead here. But these are two kind of wonderful players whose careers have often happened at the same times and often had results at the same times. And I think have been just it's not that like I'd rank them exactly the same or anything, but if you took each point in their history, they're somewhat close. Tezuka's ahead for a bit, Turds is ahead for a bit, but they're in conversations with each other. And I think it's fun to have them on the same letter here. All right, what do we got next? You go to the next page? Okay. U. We have a choice here. I mentioned Ulti earlier. It's going to be so funny at the end of this when someone's like, yeah, you missed 3 letters. Do you know the alphabet? And I'll be like, no, I guess I don't. But I mentioned Ulti earlier. Ulti is a 2-time finalist early on, losing to, I think, just Karmazin and Doc Evil. So, like, whatever. Incredible runs. Possibly losing to someone else. I didn't check. But we also have Unfixable, who is a tournament winner. I'm going to go Ulti. I think I respect Ulti's resume just a little bit more. Virgil is very good. Virgil only played 4 or 5 tournaments, but he wins one of them. He beats Seto in the finals. Really strong run. Yeah, really impressive stuff. But it's got to be Vid. It's got to be Vid. There was someone else here who had a name, Vanity. Psych could also be listed here under Vanity, but A, went by that name less, and B, Vid's ahead anyway. So, got to be Vid. Then we get W, presumably, and that's going to be myself. I don't think there's anyone else here. X. I was really worried about X. I'd already had a nightmare looking for names with E, looking for names with I, looking for names with Q. But X was easy. XCV is a finalist, very good player, not a problem. Y. This is pretty straightforward. There's also Yevon, but it's clearly Yojimbo. Hey, it counts the lines at the bottom. I've been 25 lines. I got the alphabet correct. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Now you know your ABCs. And Z, we got Zoom. Incidentally, helping Zoom's resume, not actually helping his resume, but what should help his resume, is Dalamar had a bracket of something lying around where Zoom had made a deep run, and we can't figure out what it was, and it never finished. But there's another deep run Zoom did that has been completely lost to, the sands of time. And yeah. So these are my ABCs. I'm curious if yours differ. I'm sure I tend to be very focused on the kind of lists I have, so it's hard for me to not think of those names. But I'd be very curious if you're like, oh yeah, B is definitely Black Bolt, right? Black Bolt and Lionheart, those are the 2 greats. N is Nimloth, A is Ace. I'd love to see a list someone would make of the early names, right? That would be a lot of fun. Yep, you got C right as Cookie, but D should be Doc Evil, whatever, or throw Dalamar in there. Maybe you go Kefka instead of Kamikaze here, or Kaus instead of Kamikaze is more likely. I think it would be fun to see some lists from different perspectives, or just which letters you'd change. Maybe you're like, yeah, Sujiro should have been the best. Sujiro was the guy, or Karmazin was the guy. Or you don't understand how good Unfixable or Virgil were. I think that would be fun to see. So there's my ABCs. Hope it was interesting.